The dangerous power of silence. When words no longer matter.
In human communication, silence often masquerades as peace, but beneath it, powerful emotions may brew. While shouting releases tension into the air, silence compresses it inward, forming dense emotional pressure that transforms relationships, societies, and even destinies. The moment silence enters a conversation, a decision has already been made, consciously or not. Where words still struggle, silence has already concluded.
Have you ever noticed that the quietest moments between two people often speak louder than the most passionate arguments?
The psychological dimension. Silence as decision. From a psychoanalytic perspective, silence is rarely neutral. Sigmund Freud once noted that repressed emotion always finds a way out through dreams, slips of the tongue, or psychosomatic symptoms. Silence, then, is one of repression's finest disguises. It looks calm, but within it lives the decision not to engage, not to heal, not to be vulnerable. When someone stops shouting, they may not have found peace. They may have found finality. Silence, in this sense, signals that inner dialogue has ended. The unconscious has already processed, judged, and concluded. The silence after conflict is not always forgiveness. Often, it's detachment. The mind has withdrawn energy. The subject is no longer up for negotiation. Question for reflection.
What does your silence say about you when you choose not to respond? Is it self-protection, punishment, or resolution?
The sociological view. Silence as social weapon in society. Silence can maintain hierarchies. Throughout history, power has often been exercised not through the noise of control, but through the quiet refusal to acknowledge. When someone's voice is ignored, their existence is implicitly diminished. Sociologists call this symbolic annihilation, the erasure of identity through the absence of recognition. In family dynamics, in workplaces, in governments, silence can be an act of compliance or complicit power. When a majority remains silent while injustice unfolds, their stillness doesn't neutralize harm, it magnifies it. Silence becomes the social glue of denial, protecting structures that thrive on unspoken obedience. Thus, social silence is not passive, it is deeply ideological. Question for reflection.
When you stay silent about something you know is wrong, who benefits from that silence, and who suffers?
The philosophy of absence. Silence as meaning. Philosophers have long debated the nature of silence. To Martin Heidegger, language reveals being, so silence as its withdrawal marks the boundary of human existence. It's the edge between expression and essence, where one no longer speaks about truth but stands within it. In that sense, silence is pure meaning without form. But existentially, silence also carries danger. It can become the space where alienation takes root. When dialogue stops, understanding dies. When people retreat into silence, they no longer participate in shared meaning. They choose solitude over connection, self over other. In this sense, silence is a philosophical chasm. It's not emptiness, but withdrawal from co-creation. Question for reflection.
Does your silence connect you more deeply with truth, or does it isolate you from those who share it?
The paradox of power. The silent as the decided to shout is to fight for influence. To be silent is to withdraw from it. Shouting implies that something still matters, that persuasion or emotion might still change the outcome. Silence, however, signals that the decision has been internalized, a verdict rendered in the hidden court of consciousness. When communication ceases, one side already knows. The battle is over. Silence, therefore, is the sound of closure. It's not submission. It's transcendence beyond debate. In relationships, the most chilling moment is not the heated argument but the cold quiet afterwards, when the heart has gone mute because it no longer expects understanding. Question for reflection.
Have you experienced the moment when arguing no longer seemed worthwhile? And if so, what truth had you silently accepted?
The intuitive knowledge behind silence intuition often expresses itself through silence. When the psyche knows something words cannot justify, silence becomes the natural response. It is the space where the intuitive self asserts authority over rationalization. A truly intuitive individual often falls silent when they sense futility, deception, or danger. Their quiet becomes a psychic defense against manipulation. Silence in this sense is not weakness, but mastery, an intuitive knowing that energy should not be wasted on what is already carved in destiny, stone. However, the same silence can also mask avoidance, a refusal to engage truth due to fear of transformation. Intuition must therefore be paired with awareness. Otherwise, silence may become stagnation disguised as wisdom. Question for reflection.
When you choose silence, how do you discern whether it comes from wisdom or from fear?
The emotional physics of silence emotion seeks release. When words are withheld, that energy finds alternate routes. Psychologically, this leads to displacement, resentment, or psychosomatic tension. Relationships burdened by unspoken truths begin to rot from the inside. Much like pressure in a sealed vessel, silence stores emotional energy until it bursts, sometimes through anger, illness, or breakdown. Individuals who pride themselves on keeping calm by withholding expression often pay the internal price of emotional corrosion. In that sense, silence is not peaceful. It's highly charged, volatile energy waiting for a spark. Question for reflection.
Have you ever felt physical or emotional tension after keeping quiet about something deeply important?
The cultural conditioning of silence cultures teach silence differently. In some societies, silence is equated with wisdom, discipline, or respect. In others, it's seen as repression, especially in contexts where speaking up equals survival. Gender and class further shape how silence operates. Historically, women and marginalized groups have been taught to maintain silence to preserve safety or appearances. The sociologist Pierre Bourdieu described this as symbolic violence, when the oppressed internalize silence as virtue. Thus, generations learn to equate stillness with dignity, while the loud retain power. Yet a society that glorifies silence over truth breeds paralysis. It creates generations of individuals who confuse endurance with strength. Question for reflection.
What types of silence has your culture, family, or upbringing taught you to maintain, and at what cost?
Silence in relationships. The space where love dies psychologically. Love thrives on communication, even imperfect communication. Conflict, when navigated through words, can lead to deeper intimacy. But when silence replaces dialogue, relationships begin to dissolve. The one who becomes silent has typically moved beyond hope. The work of reconciliation, forgiveness, and expression feels futile, so the psyche withdraws. Silence becomes the emotional signature of a closed heart. While shouting suggests desperation, I still care enough to fight. Silence whispers detachment, I no longer care to try. In that moment, love dies not with noise but with quiet certainty. It is not the end of emotion but the end of investment. Question for reflection.
In your relationships, do you tend to resolve conflict through dialogue or retreat into silence? What do you think that choice reveals about your inner state?
Collective silence. When societies stop listening, entire civilizations can fall prey to collective silence. When citizens stop speaking out against corruption, when the media stops probing truth, when thinkers stop questioning, silence becomes the coffin of consciousness. Sociology reminds us that tyrannies, whether political or ideological, never begin with gunfire. They begin with silent compliance. The dangerous kind of silence is not that of meditation but of moral withdrawal, the collective shrug that says, "It's not my concern." In such silence, corruption festers, injustice metastasizes, and truth collapses under the weight of fear. Every unspoken truth adds another brick to the wall that separates people from their humanity. Question for reflection.
What injustices, small or large, are you silent about, and why?
The silence within, the inner decision to withdraw psychoanalytically. External silence often mirrors inner silence, the decision to stop engaging with one's own truth. When individuals numb their introspection, they disconnect from their authentic voices. This psychic silence often manifests as depression, indifference, or cynical detachment. It isn't peace. It's psychological fatigue. The person who says, "I don't care anymore," has decided not to live freely, but to retreat from feeling altogether. True inner silence is not this kind of numbness. True stillness arises from awareness, not exhaustion. The difference lies in whether silence is chosen in empowerment or born of surrender. Question for reflection.
When you go quiet inside, does it feel spacious and peaceful, or heavy and suffocating?
Philosophical silence versus emotional silence. It is vital to distinguish between philosophical silence, the contemplative quiet that allows one to listen to existence, and emotional silence, the freezing of dialogue. Philosophical silence invites consciousness to expand. Emotional silence contracts it. One liberates, the other imprisons. Meditative silence is luminous. It clears the static of the ego. Reactive silence, however, is defensive. It punishes absence with absence. Knowing the difference is the essence of wisdom in human relations. One kind of silence grows the soul. The other dries it. Question for reflection.
When you withdraw into silence, are you seeking clarity or control?
The moment silence turns dangerous. The danger of silence begins when connection depends on sound. In an emergency, silence can be lethal. In love, it can be cruel. Silence denies others the right to respond, to repair, or to understand. It closes the door before the other even knocks. Shouting still acknowledges presence. Silence erases it. This is why psychological warfare often involves the silent treatment. It weaponizes absence. What frightens the human psyche most is not conflict, but alienation. The feeling that one's voice no longer matters. Question for reflection.
Have you ever felt destroyed not by what someone said to you, but by what they refused to say?
The healing alternative. Conscious expression, constructive communication, no matter how imperfect, allows energy to flow and transformation to occur. Healthy confrontation, grounded in emotional awareness, is an act of love. It acknowledges that both parties still care enough to stay in dialogue. To speak your truth does not mean shouting. It means choosing words that honor honesty without hostility. Communication isn't about volume, it's about presence. In relationships, therapy, or society, the courage to voice one's truth keeps life itself in motion. Only through expression do we remain alive to each other. Silence, if unexamined, becomes a graveyard of unspoken feelings. Speech, when guided by empathy, becomes resurrection. Question for reflection.
Where in your life would speaking your truth bring more healing than staying silent?
Reclaiming the voice. From silence to conscious sound, to transcend the dangerous silence, one must reclaim awareness, first inwardly, then outwardly. Psychoanalysis teaches that awareness is liberation. The moment we name what we've repressed, we transform powerlessness into agency. Silence loses its hold when it is understood. Sociologically, reclaiming voice breaks systemic cycles of passive acceptance. Philosophically, it restores dialogue as the ground of meaning. Spiritually, it reunites the individual with creation's ongoing song, the vibration that connects all life. Speaking, therefore, is not merely social behavior. It is an existential act. Each word pronounced from authenticity dismantles the walls built by years of silent self-betrayal. Question for reflection.
What truth within you has been waiting too long to be spoken aloud?
The final decision. Choosing between numb silence and conscious stillness, there are two kinds of people in silence. Those who have given up, and those who have awakened. The difference lies in intention. One kind of silence is resignation, the soul shutting its doors to life. The other is evolution, the mind creating space for higher truth. The first kills connection. The second births transformation. The danger is confusing one with the other. That confusion traps millions in relationships, systems, or identities that no longer serve them because they mistake withdrawal for wisdom. Question for reflection.
Which silence are you living in right now? The silence of surrender or the silence of clarity?
Finally, breaking the quiet, we are living in an age of dangerous silences, emotional, political, moral, and spiritual. People scroll instead of speaking. They witness instead of acting. They endure instead of confronting. But every withheld voice diminishes the collective soul of humanity a little more. The most powerful revolutions, personal and collective, begin the moment someone dares to speak truth into a room that has grown too quiet. Your words may tremble, your tone may falter, but the act of breaking silence reclaims destiny. When you find yourself withdrawing into the safe comfort of quiet, ask, am I protecting peace or avoiding truth? If your silence conceals your truth, speak. Speak kindly, but firmly. Speak even when the voice shakes, especially then. The world depends on those who still believe in the sacred power of communication, empathy, and courage. Because ultimately, silence does not protect you from pain. It protects pain from transformation. And transformation is the very reason you were given a voice. Final question for reflection.
Will you choose to remain silent Or will you speak the words that might change everything?
Please tell me what you think and how you feel about this issue. Analyze it, brainstorm it, debate it, and if you like it, please share it. Thank you for watching. I truly and highly appreciate you, and God bless you.